fans, welcome back to Room 237, and I have yet another 80s slasher film. This is kind of another really silly one. 1988's Hide and Go Shriek, or known in the UK as Close Your Eyes and Pray. As silly as the pun is, I prefer Hide and Go Shriek. Now, this is another one that I was not planning on doing during this marathon. I came across it just watching ones I was planning on YouTube. Saw it for free on YouTube. It was directed by Skip Skulnick. This was his directorial debut. But when I look at what else he's done, he's directed a lot of TV. But he was the editor of Halloween 2, okay? The first Halloween 2, the good one. Not the piece of shit Rob Zombie one. And written by Michael Kelly and starring pretty much nobody. It does star someone named Bunky Jones. She passed away in 2015. She was in another film where she actually died. She was killed in that one. Can't remember what it was now. Someone will tell me in the comments. There is someone in here, the younger kid. I want to say he was in like an episode of Saved by the Bell. Why I remember that, I have no idea. I used to watch that as a very young kid. But yeah, it's another very silly late 80s film. The premise is you have these four couples who get the fun idea to stay overnight in this furniture store where one of the guys, his father's the owner, and they play hide and seek as newly graduated adults go. Yeah, that's how they celebrate their high school graduation. But there's a cross-dressing killer picking them off. And I'm not sure how I feel about this film. The kills, one, I think what I saw was a cut version. Because it's about 4 minutes shorter than... Because this says it's 90 minutes. This was 4 minutes shorter. And some of the kills makes it feel cut. It has all the nudity. The big decapitation scene is there. But some of the other kills feels heavily censored. I did not see... It has a big reveal at the end. Almost like a sleepaway camp kind of big reveal. Not nearly as big or memorable. But I think it's what makes this movie somewhat unmemorable. If it wasn't for the reveal of the killer in this would have just fallen into obscurity like many slasher films. There's not really likable characters. It's the typical, all of them are equally annoying, and you're just waiting for them to get picked off. Okay, so, like, this one guy is basically Vanilla Ice. Before Vanilla Ice. He's got, like, the flat top. He wears his sunglasses no matter how dark it is inside the store. Because that's another thing. This movie's very poorly lit. Not like Humongous, where they're out in the woods and is poorly lit. They could have had lights in the store. But yeah, they go to this... There's four couples. One of the couples is a bit younger. They're both virgins. A kind of plan on losing their virginity to each other that night. There's this one guy who does look like a convict. He's fresh out of jail for, I think, armed robbery, released on good behavior. He says he's kicked out by his girlfriend, so he has nowhere else to go. But the owner lets him live on the top floor of this building. Must be a big-ass store, because there's an elevator and a top floor. And at the end, and once they're locked in, they can't get out. So, okay, they play hide and seek, which is basically, I guess, a slick way of saying, we're all gonna go fuck now, because that's what they do. The first death, I don't even remember how far into it is. Fairly brutal. I mean, it's the virgin couple, so that right there goes against slasher tropes. She's gonna go put this black lingerie on that this other girl loaned to her. And the killer's like shoving her face into this sink that's full of water, and I think bashes her head off the faucet, because you get this cool Sam Raimi camera angle of like the inside of the sink. And you see her face and the blood pooling up. And then way later on, it shows the boyfriend who's been waiting for her. He puts his pants back on. He's walking around looking for her. And the killer picks him up, walks over to these spikes, slams him down. But this is the one that feels heavily censored, because you see the spikes, which I don't even know what the spikes are supposed to be. But when he gets slammed down on them, what we see is like the bottom of the screen, a spike, and just like his bloody hand, like grabbing it, and then a shot of his hand going limp. We don't... once he slides all the way down, we get a shot of him with the spike through him. Feel like there's supposed to be more there. Probably is. And then just more scenes of each couple in their own bed somewhere in the store. And of course, you know, and the killer, what is interesting is the killer will don the clothes of, like, not always the victim, but wear clothes of another member of the group. Sort of reminiscent of Terror Train, how the killer will kill someone and then put on their costume. Nowhere near as good as Terror Train. But so then they all regroup. They eat chicken, I guess, that they snuck in. They start looking around for the first couple. And the killer also, there's a bunch of mannequins everywhere, and the killer keeps rearranging the mannequins. And I will say there are a couple genuinely creepy scenes, the way that they're shot. Because there is one part where the one couple, where it's the tall guy with the Vanilla Ice flat top, he's in bed without clothes. His girlfriend's doing something. The killer takes his clothes, goes after his girlfriend. So she's running away, and she hops on the elevator. And just the way it's shot of the killer, because the killer does this like stiff run, and is always a giggling when he's wearing someone else's clothes. He does this stiff run towards the elevator that it actually is kind of creepy. Just the way it's like dimly lit, this sort of stiff run from a giggly person. It does look kind of creepy. And then later on, the killer is wearing, I think, the black lingerie that the first girl had, or maybe it's just black cross-dressing clothes. He's doing this like weird dance and chuckling to himself. That scene was also kind of creepy. But so eventually they know that there's a killer, and we keep seeing that convict guy, and it's like I'm watching, I'm like, there's no way that guy's a cross-dresser. And they keep showing, well, first, because the movie opens up with the guy, up close of his mouth, putting lipstick on, eyeliner. Then he goes out, gets a prostitute, bangs her up against a brick wall in an alley, and then stabs her to death. And it's obviously a different person than this convict guy. Also, really poor snake tattoos on hands and feet, which I don't think the convict has. But it really wants you to think the convict is the killer, because he's the one chasing after all these kids. Which, you kind of can't blame him. These kids broke in. He does live there. He is kind of looking after the place. But they eventually hog tie him. And the tall guy's girlfriend, once she got on the elevator, the killer got her on top of the elevator, tied her down, taped her mouth shut. So at one point, because there was the two that got killed, the first couple, girl in the elevator. So there's like 5 that lived, really? I gotta be missing some. Sorry, folks, this is probably a messed up review. Oh, there was one other guy. Bunky Jones, who plays the 80s big Aquanet hair, sort of punky girl. Her boyfriend gets stabbed in the stomach. So that makes more sense. 4 get killed, 4 live. And they decide to arm themselves. They're all walking around with like mannequin arms. Those are their weapons. At one point, they get on this elevator, and the blonde girl on top of the elevator gets loose of her restraints, peers down into the elevator. They're all looking up at her. Of course, it's going up, and you get what's going to happen. It reaches the floor, and it decapitates her. Decent enough effect. It kind of goes into slow-mo as the head's coming off. Then we just see it kind of roll over, and we see a viscera in the stump. Cool fact, though, the actress who played her, which the effects were done by Screamin' Mad George, who did Society, which, if you've seen Society, if you haven't seen Society, go see Society. That's an awesome 80s movie. Great body horror. It's really ridiculous, but it's awesome. Stick with it till the end. What else is Big Trouble in Little China, Predator, Elm Street 3 and 4, this, Society, Bride of Reanimator, then and Beyond Reanimator, which makes sense because Brian Usna did the Reanimator sequels and Society. Yeah. Directed The Guyver in 91. movie with Mark Hamill. Okay. So yeah, that's Screaming Mad George. But the actress, the point I was going to make, Annette Sinclair, was asked to do the makeup on the prosthetic head so that it would match her makeup that she was wearing. Just a cool little tidbit, I guess. I thought that was interesting when I read it. And apparently this was made for less than $300,000, which is how much Halloween was made for. And then, of course, we get the big reveal, which is, okay, I'll say spoilers because it is kind of a big, not as drastic as Sleepaway Camp, but it's a big reveal, so spoilers. Again, can I recommend it? Like I've said before, if you have to see every slasher film, go for it. It's not a great movie. It's one of the slashers. It's really only memorable for a couple of its kills and its reveal at the end. But it is very silly. You're going to be left with more questions than answers, so spoilers. The convict is not the killer. The cross-dresser is an ex-lover of the convict. The cross-dresser thought that these kids were getting in the way of their love for one another. The convict tried to go straight and tried to get rid of the cross-dressing lover. And which really just doesn't make any sense, because why, which the convict's name is Fred and the cross-dressing killer's name is Zach. Even in the opening credits it points out Scott Kubey as Zach. Oh, Sean Kanan was probably the only big name in this film. He was in Karate Kid 3, bunch of soap operas. The writer, Michael Kelly, plays a wino. So, okay, this cross-dresser is an obsessed lover of this guy, Fred. Why is he going out banging female prostitutes and then killing them? Why does he think these kids are interfering with their love life when each guy there has a girlfriend that they're trying to bang? Doesn't make any sense. Zach is able, gets offended by Fred's rejection, stabs him in the neck with a knife, and then charges at the kids, which I think they just move out of the way, and then he falls down the elevator shaft, and they're up on the top floor. There's even a scene where these cops are across the street doing something to somebody, and they're in the background banging on the windows of these soundproof glass windows so the cops don't see them. There's a magazine newsstand guy who sees these fucking kids. One is wearing no shirt, carrying a mannequin arm, and they're literally crouched down doing like a Scooby-Doo walk. There's a red light on him. He calls the cops for a break-in. So Zach falls from the top floor down an elevator shaft. Cops, ambulance gets there. Fred is still alive to give us the exposition of how they were lovers. He tried to go straight. He couldn't handle it and went crazy. So then, and the kids seem fine. We then see this one. There's a man and a woman pushing the gurney with the sheet. So we get, okay, that's Zach. He's dead. She walks off. The guy lights up a cigarette. People are driving away. Then the ambulance pulls up, and we see Zach driving, still with his eyeliner and everything on. He just kind of looks at the camera, smiles, movie ends. So Zach was able to fall, which Fred was stabbed in the neck. It was still able to, which he conveniently died right after, I'm guessing. Because he did the, so right after that exposition, he died because we had to have exposition. Zach was able to fall down an elevator shaft from the top floor, was then able to feign death enough to fool this EMT, who probably deals with dead bodies all the time. Probably checked vitals to see if he's still alive. Able to overpower him. Get the body in, well, okay, it didn't show the body going in the ambulance. But supposedly this is the ambulance with all the surviving kids in it. He's able to get in the ambulance and drive, still with eyeliner, everything. Overpower the EMT, take his clothes, assumingly shut the door to the ambulance, get in the front seat, and drive off without anyone seeing. I know, looking for logic in a slasher film, it isn't a good idea, but this is just one of those where I can't help it. So, okay, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see the reveal with it actually being two people. I thought it was going to try to, make Fred look like this sort of stereotypical manly convict who also does cross-dress. But for the time this came out, it was kind of an interesting ending. This is right probably at the peak of the AIDS epidemic. So, it was interesting to see this kind of ending for that time. And like I said, if it wasn't for the ending, like that big reveal and at least the decapitation scene, I feel like there was more to the impaling kill. This had to have been a cut version. No one would talk about this movie. I can't really say I enjoyed it. It kind of dragged. It is very silly. The characters are not really likable. They're all annoying, which in a slasher film, again, it's pointless to argue. But, in a good slasher film, you care about the characters. That's why it's scary when they get killed. When they start getting annoying, that's when you start rooting for the killer and waiting for them to get killed. And it's not the worst 80s slasher I've ever seen. It probably wouldn't be the top 10 worst I've ever seen, but it is very silly. There are a lot of plot holes. And really, if it wasn't for its ending, there really wouldn't be much to say at all. But yeah, that's 1988's Hide and Go Shriek. Thank you for watching.